Welcome to the Connectable podcast.
The Connectable podcast starts in 3, 2, 1.
We don't have a formal intro.
Boom.
We just get this thing going. So
today's that'll come in,
not even that, man. We have a bumper intro, and then it stops, and then whatever happens. Like we just turn the mics on and hope for the best.
Sweet.
Yeah. So today's guest is Conor Manning. Man, it's crazy because we were just talking. Like you and I knew each other quite a while ago. I don't know when you left Sacramento, but you were a pastor at the church I go to. And then the funny thing is, and I love this, I was telling you this, I love connecting with people that I didn't have like a super strong connection with back in the day. Like you and I knew each other. We probably played some like basketball, football against each other, different things. Probably had some just short conversations, but like, I feel like I know you, but I don't really know you. So I'm really interested in this conversation and just learning a little bit more about your life. And, but anyways, we like to start off by telling people how we're connected. That's pretty much it. Pretty simple.
You nailed it.
I nailed it. Yeah. I try to. We try to get the intros right. Deb, struggles with intros, but
I suck at intros. This is a known fact. Always.
Hey, that's fair. But you probably bring it deep somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's very generous. Okay.
Leave the light fluffy intro stuff to Josh.
Yeah. And then you handle the deep stuff. That's very kind of you. See, that's the problem, man. All these guests that we have on are just too nice to Deb. I don't know why you guys do it.
You're the only one with a problem, Josh. You're the only one.
Maybe. I feel like it's me and my brother and Nicole. That's where the issues lie. But anyways, man, tell us a little bit about who is Conor Manning. Just give us a little explanation of who you are, what you do, and just introduce us to you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. It's so funny because I've heard several people be like, I had no idea what I was going to talk about. And I was telling somebody about this earlier. They're like, what are you going to talk about? I was like, I don't know. I think he's going to ask me questions and we're going to talk about it. So I would say like, man, I'm a dad, right? That's a big hat that I wear. I would say like mostly like if I think of myself in like an idealistic way, right? Like I'm a lover of people. Like I love people and I love helping people. I love seeing like the little light bulb turn on for people when they realize that they can do something that maybe they previously thought they couldn't do. And that manifests itself in different ways in life, right? So like I love it with my kids. Like I had an incredible conversation yesterday with my daughter about like relating to people at school and the way she's feeling right now, and that not being a good feeling associated with, and like just walking through like, Audrey, this is why you can do this, and like I believe in you, and kind of draw that out of her, like one space. What I actually do for like work is I am now a financial advisor. So I work for like a boutique financial advisory firm that works with people that are transitioning into retirement. A lot of my role is sales focused, meeting new potential clients and talking to them, and then figuring out where they fit and how maybe we can help them, and sorting those sorts of things out. And so it's fun there because like you look at people that have maybe had their nose to the grindstone for 30 or 40 years and have said no to a lot of things in life, just trying to like make it to this thing that in their mind is like, I'm going to make it to this, and then it's going to be like amazing, and helping them go, okay, well, like, what about it is going to be amazing, right? Like, what's actually going to be meaningful? What do you actually even have to work with, and then try to like bring this marriage between like reality, what you have, and aspirational, what you want, and do they work, and if they do, how do we make them work even better, kind of a thing. So like, that's what I spend most of my days, like my working hours. That's what I spend my time doing, so it's like I'm a dad. I do finance. Obviously, I think you mentioned, right? We met through church. So I was involved in vocational style church ministry, basically from 18 to 34, 35. and that was my primary focus. And so a lot of it manifested itself there, helping people kind of understand like the true meaning of the gospel is like this lifting of limitation, right? It's like all these things you think you're limited by, it's actually just been removed,
Yeah.
you know? And like helping people reframe that, and which is still a really fun conversation to have with people. And I still really thoroughly enjoy that too. So I do all that stuff, and then people sometimes ask me like what I do with my free time and like what are my hobbies, and it's like, well, like you're a parent, right?
Yeah.
Deb, do you have kids?
No kids.
No, but you're around people who have kids, right? So like you see
well, I have about 150 teenagers that I'm in charge of every day. So I don't know if that counts.
Yeah, for 100%, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
they're not my kids. There's someone else's kids.
Somebody else's kids.
I'm with them all day long.
Still, right?
Yeah.
So like most of like a lot of my time goes to my kids. My free time goes to like I like fitness stuff. So, and I've moved on spectrums with that as far as how that shakes itself out. I don't know. That was a really long-winded explanation, maybe, but
no, it's perfect, man. And I'll be honest with you. So my wife, Rachel. I think you knew each other from back in the day. She's like, I said, hey, Conor Manning's gonna be on the podcast. She's like, oh, that's awesome. And she's like, what are you guys gonna talk about? Great question. No idea. But I say he's a cool guy. I like what he posts on Instagram. We're gonna figure it out. But I will. Hey man, that's how every week goes. We're like, Deb and I are like, what are we gonna talk about? No idea. We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah. We all do.
But I'll say this though, one of the reasons I did want to connect with you is because I remember back in the day, you were incredible at connecting with students. You were incredible at connecting with people. Like you said, that's a passion of yours. And it's obvious to me because that's something that really stuck out to me from back in the day. That was something that you were really good at. And I remember you had some great relationships with people, and they can, considered you mentors or a mentor. They considered you, a leader that they wanted to follow. And so like all the things that you just said, is the exact reason why we just wanted to talk to you and kind of pick your brain about some different things, because you said connection a couple of times, which is what we're all about. That's why we name, this podcast Connectable. And it's just so cool to actually hear you say that, because I've seen it for all these years, but to know that that's a passion of yours and it's something that's at the forefront of your mind, whether it be with your kids, the people you're giving financial advice to, whatever it may be, like it's just cool that is something that's on your mind. Because I think some people are really good at connecting with people, but it's not, it's just something they do, right? They're not necessarily passionate about it. They don't really think about it in that way. They just kind of like, I'm just kind of good at it, right? It's like a really good athlete. Like I don't think about being good at basketball. I'm just good at basketball. And then you have these killers that are really good at basketball and constantly think about being good at basketball. It's a different thing. So I just wanted to point that out, man. Like it's cool that you think about connection in that way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's funny because like, I don't know that I was just always really good at it. Like I remember struggling through some stuff like early on, which is funny. Like I've told this story before, like, because I think this is the deal. Like, and this is even maybe part of the conversation with my daughter, right? Is that she's looking at at life right now as a 5th grader, a 10-year-old, going, well, why don't my friendships work like this? You know what I mean? These like things she watches on Disney and whatever, where it's just like they're like BFFs, and constantly want to be together and do all this stuff. And it's like, man, Audrey, like when I think back to like school, like how many friends I have from when I was in school, maybe 2. And that's a very loose, like we text sometimes.
Sure.
You know what I mean? As adults, like I don't really talk to anybody from that season of life. But like I remember back, were you in youth group when Jeannie Mayo was there? Was it Capitol?
I was at Capitol, but I was not involved. I know Rachel was, but I know the name, but I wasn't quite involved at that point.
Okay, so that was the whole reason I came out, right? Like I gave my life to Jesus. She was like, hey, come do this master's thing. She was like, I'm going to pay for it. You just come do it. And I was just this lost kid, like didn't really know what I was doing. I was like, okay, sure. So I came out, and then she was like, hey, like, Deb, like, I'm assuming you're like some kind of teacher, coach, whatever. So like, that's like vocation. It was like, hey, you're 18, you've known Jesus for 3 months. Why don't you lead this small group of, 30, 14-year-olds, And I was like, yeah, this is a great idea. Obviously I know what I'm doing.
Sure.
But like, I remember this group of guys, like these 14-year-old boys, right? They were all in my group or connected to my group in some way. And she told me, she's like, hey, these 3 guys, like you need to own these 3 guys, right? And I was rejected by them for basically like the whole 9 months of masters.
Really?
Like literal, like they'd be at youth group because their parents were like board members, at the church, or like super involved. They like had to go, like
Sure.
you, right? There's like
Yeah.
force. So they're there.
Yeah.
And they'd be hanging out talking to each other. And I'd walk up like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. And they would literally close their circle and like close me out, or immediately disperse as soon as I showed up. Just total rejection.
Yeah.
And it was wild, man, because like I just got hammered away at it. And then they came to summer camp, right? Again, because they had to, and we stayed in the room together, and we had a ball.
Yeah.
Like we had the greatest time at summer camp, just goofing around, being idiots. It was fantastic. And it cracked me up because I was done with this year of master's commission, right? That had lasted for like the 9 months or whatever. Summer camp was like the last thing, and then you like go home basically, right?
Yeah.
So we had this thing at summer camp, and I'm leaving like a few days after, and this group of guys like finally is like, hey, you think we could like go to lunch or something and just like hang out before you leave?
Yeah.
And I was like, this whole freaking time, you idiots,
Yeah.
So we finally went. But
That's awesome.
I'm telling you, like, well, one of those guys specifically, I still talk to this day. You know what I mean?
Wow, that connection's still there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it like, there's like this assumption that it just all flows naturally. Sometimes it's just a real grind,
Yeah.
and you do have to be willing to walk into a group of people and like have this happen like over and over and over again. And then eventually, maybe it works itself out, and maybe it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Devin's like, you show up to your book study deal by yourself. You know what I mean? And like, how many times are you willing to walk in like an idiot until you make a friend,
That's how I always make my friends. I just go to something that I'm invited to by myself, or, or whatever. And it's really funny because when I was in high school, when I was younger, I used to be really shy, like super introvert. I played sports, so I was outgoing. I mean, I just, I did things, but I was just like, don't talk to me, like I'm focusing. And I just had my small group of friends. Never, ever in my life, I ever thought I would be a teacher standing in front of teenagers. Like at all. Like, you guys don't scare me. Like, I've been in high school, like talk about the movie Mean Girls. Like, I lived it. Like, you don't scare me. So, but yeah, it's just, I don't know, like as I got older, it just kind of changed, and I just stopped being afraid. And I just kind of was like, well, if rejection is the worst thing that's going to happen to me, like I'll be fine. I've been through worse. So let me go see. Well, and it's funny, it's adults are way more different than teenagers. So like, Connor, you see like your kids going, going through stuff like about like, oh, my friends, how come it's not like that on TV. And so I have my high school kids coming up to me, kind of asking the same thing and going through the same bullshit that I went through in high school. And I'm like, listen, it is so different when it's so different when you're an adult. Everyone's way nicer. Everyone's way cooler. Or if they're not nice, right away. And then you're like, okay, peace out. I'm going to go over here, but when, and I tell them in high school, it's so different because you're confined in these 4 walls, and those are all the friends you got to just make your choices. But
here's your pool of people, right?
Yeah.
It's it
sucks too, because a lot of it I do think comes down to just like confidence over time. You know what I mean? And I think for like my kid, that's the hardest thing to me, is I just want to be like, hey, listen, like, do you know, and this is what we talked about yesterday, like whatever. I'm starting to feel it right now, but just, we got a little emotional in the car after school. Just like, do you understand how great you are? Like do you get it? Because if you got it, you'd probably walk into school with a smile on your face, right? Because that's another part of it. When you feel good about yourself, you have a smile on your face, and then you attract more like positive relationships, right? And people like want to talk to you. But if you walk around with like, looking like, yeah, I mean, I think you were talking about, right? Just looking like
Yeah.
locked in, don't care, I'm not interested in you, like, focused, the RBF, look,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
That was me
Yeah.
in high school so many
right, but
times.
like you're sending the vibe, like everybody's like, oh, like don't talk to her because she's just mean, and like I didn't say that to my 10-year-old, but I'm just,
Yeah.
alluding to it. But I think that too, like it's wild. Like you do have to be, it's like this weird mixture of like confidence, but then like humility and acceptance of like, well, like at the end of the day, like
Mhm. Yeah.
just is what it is, I don't know.
I think that's
Anyway,
super important, man. Well, I think because the confidence thing too. I think when you have that confidence, when you walk into a situation like that with that confidence, I think if you say you approach someone and say, "Hey," you try to make that connection and say it doesn't go well, and they're not interested. I think if you don't have that confidence, then that feels like a personal attack on you. It feels like, oh, there must be something wrong with me. I did something
right.
wrong. I messed up here. I think if you have that confidence, I think you walk into that situation, and if it doesn't go well or it doesn't end up in a friendship, it's like it wasn't meant to be. Like this was not,
Right.
this wasn't a connection that was meant to happen. But I mean, it's just that little bit of confidence, I think, makes a huge difference in how I think even we perceive, that interaction and how it was, how it went, or I guess how it didn't go. You know what I mean? But like you
Yeah.
said, so forgive me if you said this, but how old are your kids?
10, 8, and 4.
Okay, so it's kind of like a wide spectrum there.
A little bit of a spectrum.
You're dealing with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because
All the way from like 5th grade basketball, like half of her class is tipping into that, like interested in boy, girl, like dating, who are you dating kind of a thing. Other half of her class is like, Harry Potter is the greatest thing ever. We're just going to be like wizards at recess. What I mean? It's like, and she's like in the middle of it. And then you like go all the way down the scale, and my 4-year-old like still doesn't wipe his own butt, and everybody's, oh, did we freeze up?
Oh, you froze a little bit. Yeah.
We're probably frozen too.
Yep. Everybody's frozen. We can still hear you though. We still got the butt wiping part of the story.
Oh, did we?
Oh no, did we lose you?
Don't you love it sometimes?
But look, at least he got frozen in a great,
I know. I can't imagine what we look like to him right now.
Oh no! Hey, what's funny? I still have that one picture. Remember that picture that I sent you, where you got frozen with like?
Yeah.
I still have that on my desktop. It's the greatest thing ever. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that picture yet. It's just like black. It's like blackmail. It's like, hey, remember, I have that one picture. Oh no!
Okay,
we completely lost him.
Where is he? I didn't even ask him. Where is he recording from? He's not from Sacramento anymore.
No, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin internet.
I know. Sorry. I always jump in these things when I know a guest, and oh, he's back. He's back.
Sorry about that. Lost you.
You were frozen in like a cool like pose. So you like, some people get frozen and their face is just like all crazy.
Yeah,
but you look cool. We were talking about that. We're like, all right, he looks cool.
It was like this. It's like you're like a motivational speaker giving an amazing point. Yeah, so it was good. I was actually while you were gone, I was telling Deb she got frozen maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, and it's the best face ever. So I took a screenshot. I still have it on my desktop. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that picture, but I have it just in case. Like if this whole podcast partnership goes sideways and it gets ugly. I got some pictures that you don't want out there, Deb. I just want to say that.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, but luckily for you, Connor, that was not the case. You had it was a cool pose. It was a cool pose.
Well, there we go.
But I think we left off. Last thing you said was something about your son wiping his butt. That's kind of where we left off.
Yeah. So she's dealing with all this funny stuff, and then he's like because my kids want a dog, and I've told him that when Jacob, the 4-year-old, wipes his own butt, we could talk about getting a dog, because like from my vantage point, I don't need to deal with more poop in my life.
Sure, makes a lot of sense.
Like, so we can trade like 1 for 1, but we're not like doubling other entities
dookie.
poop in my life, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's
So-
man, a lot of pressure on that little guy, huh?
Yeah.
Siblings are looking at him like, hey man, you got to figure this butt wiping thing out. Because if you
Figure it out.
don't, no dog for us.
No dog.
No
But
dog.
guess what? He doesn't care at all. Like, he's not motivated even a little bit. So it doesn't matter.
There we go. That's good. He's got some he's like just got solid character. He's like, you're not gonna shake me.
Whatever. I'm
It
about
is-
me. I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah.
I imagine you have 3 kids, and Josh, you have 2, and
Yeah.
I imagine you both. So Connor, I imagine you have to stay in shape to keep up with all 3 of them. I can't
Yeah.
even imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I did for a while, I had kind of this like running joke that like I needed to work out because someday a boy would show up at my front door, and I always wanted to be able to like scare the crap out of them.
Yeah.
When like just shake their hand and crush it and be like, hey.
I love that.
Yeah.
So gotta work out, because I don't really know who's showing up at my front door. It could be like star running back. I guess it could be some kid who's still in love with Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? I don't know. But all I know is that like I'm gonna be prepared for whatever, you know? Yeah, no. It's weird. That's like a mixture, Deb, because it's like, yes, that's true, but they also like suck the life force out of you on a daily basis in a great way. Like, you love them, and it's a great place to put all that energy, but energy is a limited quantity, right? So like there is a choice in there somewhere of like, okay, like,
Yeah.
how do we get it done, you know?
Yeah. I always ask Josh, because he has 2. I'm like, how do you have energy to podcast afterwards? I have 0 kids, and I struggle podcasting at this time. I don't understand how you do it. And I helped my sister watch my nephew one weekend. He's 1.5 now, but back then he was, I think, like 6 months old. And I remember playing dad for the weekend because my brother-in-law was out of town. And by the time the weekend was over, I was like, bye, I'm never coming back. Just you're on. Bye. I'm going home to my apartment. Bye. So anyway, that for me, that's my short-term experience. So I always give kudos to parents. I just don't even know how to do it.
So, but do you remember, Deb, like your first like days or like experiences of teaching, right? Probably I'm just making an assumption here, but you probably were like, it was probably like overwhelming. Like there were so many things to do and think about and relationships. And then somewhere in there, like 6 months, a year and a half, whatever, you like hit this glide where you're like, oh, like I got this. Like I know exactly what I'm doing. Like I mean, it's still tiring, right?
Yeah.
There's still like all these little things that happen, but you figured it out. That's how parenting is too. And then you add new ones in, right? And then like each time you add a new one in, there's like another figuring out period. But
yeah,
I'm going to tell you, by the time you hit 3, it's kind of like, okay, well, like I kind of get it. Like, you know, I mean, it's still exhausting, but it's fine, you know, whatever. But it is that, like, for a long time, people. So I would go work out at like, I work out at home now, but I used to work out at a gym, and I would get there at like 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, and people would be like, "Why do you do that?" And I was like, "Well, those are the only hours of the day that nobody wants anything to do with me. Like beyond that time, it's like somebody wants something from me, and it's hard to figure out when to say no. So like I go really early in the morning, I get my workout in, I come home, and then it's like, whatever, I can take the day.
Man, I was doing the same thing. The gym near me now, the hours are messed up a little bit because of everything that's going on. So it's not super helpful for me, but I would do the same thing 4:30 in the morning. Cause like you said, it's just the easiest time. And I remember I was listening to something, just like a short YouTube clip of Jocko Willink. And he was talking about, I forgot what it was. I think someone was asking him something about like how he gets all this stuff done, like whether it be writing a book, creating content. And he's like, well, first of all, I don't sacrifice time with my family. He's like, I refuse to do it. He's like, so if there's anything that I want to do, whether it be write a book, create some kind of program, he's like, I either stay up way later when everybody else is going to bed, or I wake up way earlier when everybody's still asleep. He's like, but I just
Right.
refuse to sacrifice the time with my family to pursue something I'm passionate about. But now that doesn't mean I have an excuse not to pursue something I'm passionate about or get in better shape. It just means that I have to figure it out if I really want to do it. And so that's what I was going to ask you about too, man, because it seems like you have a pretty good workout schedule. I don't know if you're just trying to stay in shape, or if you're, hey man, I see those one arm pull-ups and I'm like, well, that's impressive. The last two guests we've had on the show have just made me feel bad about myself. You know what I mean? I'm like, I need to try harder. I need to do something. I'm like, just one arm pull-ups up there. But like, are you, is that your mindset with obviously having kids? Like, do you have that same mindset that he was kind of talking about, where it's like, hey, if I want to pursue these things, it can't come at the cost of family. It can't come at the cost of relationships with my kids. So if I want it bad enough, I got to figure it out.
To an extent, like, so yes, I would say for the most part, yes. And on the other end of that spectrum, like with my kids, I don't think it's a terrible thing for them to see me exercising or taking time to exercise.
Yeah,
You know
that
what I
makes
mean?
sense. Sure.
So like, I want them to see healthy behavior modeled. And I've even at times like invited Audrey to like do yoga with me, because I've done a lot more of that lately. I'm getting older, as it turns out, Josh, and my body's like,
hey man,
I don't know how much more like heavy lifting I need. I need like flexibility. Like, can I move my body? I'm
sure.
into that.
That Tom Brady stuff. However he
Yeah,
does
I'm like,
it.
oh yeah, shoot, shoulder hurts, like
Yeah.
knees hurt. Like, I should probably tone it down. So like invite them to be a part of it, or take 30 minutes or spread it out. I've done some stuff with that. But yeah, like totally. To do the job I'm doing now. So I was like stepping out of full-time ministry, coming into an industry that I had no idea anything about, really was stepping into it because a friend was like, hey, I think you'd be really good at this, and here's kind of the opportunity, and our company's hiring. Would you ever consider doing it? I was like, okay, cool. What do I got to do? Well, you got to pass this like federal exam to get licensed, which means you need to study all this stuff, which has like, this exam has like a really high fail rate, like first time through. Most people fail the first time they take it. And it's not a lot of math, actually. You'd think for like a financial advisor, like the thing would be math.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like law, right? It's like, what are the rules? And it's all foreign concept stuff. Hang on a second. So I needed to like study for this thing and gain a bunch of information I didn't have. So what I was doing at that point in time, I think I started the program, like the study program for it, like in May. I took the test in September. But basically in that time frame, I was getting up at 4. I would study from 4 to 6. Everybody would get up right around then to start getting ready for school and all the other things that had to go on in the day. Make food. I would go to work. I would finish work, come home. We would do all the normal family stuff. And then when everybody went to bed at 8:30, I would study from 8:30 until about 10:30, go to bed, wake up at 4, you know what I mean? And just do it all over again.
Right.
To try to pursue this thing that I was like, hey, like I want to do this, but I don't know where the time is. So I'm just going to make it work for a season. And it was crazy because like, this is kind of funny. It's humorous to me. Maybe it's not funny to anybody else, but it's humorous to me because it's like, this testing program said, hey, if you want to walk in to take this exam and pass, you need to get like a 90% on your practice exam, right? So like the day before I went to go take it, I took my practice exam and I got like a 68, right? Which wasn't good. I was like, oh, this is not a good thing. So basically I walked in the next day to go take this exam. It's in like this testing site, like where people go to get like take their doctor test,
Sure.
all this stuff. It's like this little regulated building. And I'm walking in and I'm just like kind of tossed it up. I was like, hey, listen, it's going to be a learning experience. I'm going to fail. So like all pressure's off, like just go in. I'm going to see what it's like. I'm going to know what it's like to be in the seat. I'm going to know what it's like to go on their computer and click their mouse and like go through their whole process. And it's like, I think it's like 140 some questions, only 120 count, and you have to get above like a 70. Now it's just pass fail. But when I took it, it was like you had to be above 72 or 73 or something like that to get a pass. And I went through and took it, hit submit on the other side of it, like having no idea, popped up, boom, I passed by like 3 points.
Nice.
I was just like,
hey.
like
That's awesome.
literally, I got up from my seat with my arms up in the air like this and walked to the front, the lady at like the desk, and was like, I'm here. I did it.
Yeah.
Just give me whatever paper I need. I'm leaving.
I'm done with this.
But like,
that's awesome.
I don't know, like stuff like that. It's just like, it's a grind, you know?
Yeah.
You want it, you got to grind at it, and that's okay, you know? But I think what you were saying though, Josh, is kind of like, well, what are you willing to exchange for the thing that you say you want? Like, if you really want that, that's great. But then what are you going to give to get it? That's like a real life equation.
Right. Well, and it's like, you know, kind of like what Deb was saying about this podcast, like, yeah, it takes some work. Not that it's not the most highly produced thing, you know, especially some of our early stuff, it was pretty crappy, but, you know, it still takes some time to put together and do the interviews and all these different things. And so to your point, I, you know, in talking with my wife, I was like, well, I'm not going to sacrifice time with family. So if I'm there with family, like you said, still doing the fun stuff, them seeing me, you know, running around with them is good stuff for them to see. Cause again, like you said, promotes a healthy lifestyle, but, I want to be present when I'm there and not, you know, be stuck in the office editing and doing all this stuff for hours. So the sacrifice for me wasn't going to be family time, but sometimes it's sleep, right? Like I could get a couple extra hours of sleep, but like I love podcasting. And so I'm willing to make that sacrifice of sleep. Now, is it always the best idea? Probably not. Like there's some mornings where I'm like, hey, you know, was it worth it? Did I need to bang that episode out like that? Probably not. But you know, it's just for me, you know, to your point, that was the sacrifice that I was willing to make. It's like, I can cut back on the sleep a little bit. Luckily I handle a little bit of sleep really well. You know what I mean? So I know that's not the case for everybody. I think it probably depends on each person, but for me, I'm in a pretty good spot where I can handle, you know, 3-4 hours sometimes, and I'm good. I can still function. Now, if I sit down for too long, I may start dozing off. Like I can't watch a movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. Can't watch a movie during that time, but that's fine though. I have a 3-year-old and a almost 9-month-year-old. So so it's like there's not a whole lot of sitting anyways. So it's perfect. Keeps me moving.
Does your 9-month-old sleep through the night?
She does now, but that was a little bit of a grind because you do the whole sleep training thing, and she was not happy at first. She was like, "Screw you guys, I'm not doing this," and you know, she wasn't thrilled at first, but you know, we kind of just followed this little process, and she does great. She does great now. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's fun though, man, and it's like I said, I just enjoy like when I look at your Instagram and what you post, like. It's just, like I said, it's just cool. It's like you really focus on the fitness stuff, but like it's obvious that you just love your kids and you place a lot of importance and emphasis on those relationships. Do you feel like it is so when you had your first child? Like obviously we've mentioned it a couple of times. You've had all this experience mentoring, you know, basically teenagers. Which I'm gonna interrupt myself real quick. There's a funny story that I was talking with Rachel about earlier. I don't know if you remember this. So, you know, and despite what I said earlier, I loved going to the group. When I became a leader, things changed a little bit. I just want to make that clear. But we were at a summer camp, and it might've been the last summer camp that you were at before you moved on to other things. I'm not going to say this kid's name, but there was a kid there that I think you kind of took under your wing. I think a couple of people took under their wing, and I'll never forget, man. I came down to the breakfast hall one morning, and this kid had the biggest pile of bacon. Do you remember this?
I just love how it's being introed right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh man. Okay. So bacon, big pile of bacon.
Yeah, this massive. I'm talking like an unhealthy portion of bacon. Like we all love bacon, right? But this kid, like, I'm like, did you leave any for anybody else? And
why did they stop him? Why did he?
Why didn't they stop him? Enter Conor Manning, because all of a sudden at one point you saw Conor kind of come across the room and sit down with this kid, and then Conor just very nicely just slid the plate of bacon away from him, and then had this conversation with him. And I remember this kid like trying to wrestle you. It's like, give me the bacon. You're like, no, man, this is not healthy. Do you remember any of this? Oh,
I
I remember.
100% believe it though, because I would do that. I'd be like, listen, bro, like
Yeah.
this isn't gonna happen. Like you're
Yeah.
not
Cause
gonna die today. Not on
no,
my
because he was
watch.
he was kind of like a short, pudgy kid. Like it was
Yeah,
obvious that he could eat the whole thing, but he shouldn't.
you probably
And
could. Yeah,
yeah, and you just kind of shut it down, and he eventually,
man.
I think you broke him. He finally walked away. Wasn't happy,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
saved him from speeding up the road to diabetes, maybe.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah.
Well,
Anyways,
that's really funny because like I could see doing that. I mean, like it's such like a mixed bag when it came to like years of youth ministry because I could see walking and be like, hey man, you can't eat that. I could also see sitting down and be like, listen, if you don't finish every last bit of that bacon,
yeah,
I'm gonna make you run
right.
like until you throw it all up. So
Yeah,
you
no,
committed, it's on your plate. You better freaking finish it. You
yeah,
understand me?
buckle up, buddy. No, it was not
Like,
that conversation. It was more like I'm trying to keep your arteries clear, dog.
like I
Like,
love you.
yeah, I
Don't do
love
that.
you. But again,
Probably in a stern and not
oh yeah,
super gentle way, I'm sure.
no, it was super gentle. I'm like, dang, this dude is
Okay.
super patient. Like this kid's like trying to get past you, wrestle past you. It's like he just wants that bacon
Yeah.
so badly. It's funny that you don't remember that. It makes sense you don't remember that because you've probably dealt with so many weird situations like but
Oh my goodness.
that just stuck out to me. And then, like I said, Rachel remembers too. She's like, oh, you remember that one time? I said, yeah, I'm going to bring it up on the podcast. I'm going
Oh
to talk
yeah.
about this, but I'm bummed that you don't remember.
Dude, there's so many weird memories from that season of life. I posted the other day this photo that I ran through. Someone was like, hey, do you have this photo from this thing like way back when? So I was like scrolling through my phone trying to find a photo. Did you see that the other day? Like I posted this bruise on the back of my leg.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Just brilliant camp ideas. It was Cole Zick and me were
Yeah.
like in charge of games at summer camp. And we decided to take ultimate frisbee and we were going to make the fields wet, and to score you had to like be standing in a kiddie pool at one end of the field.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And instead of doing like a throw off start, we were like, what's going to be awesome about this is we're going to start with a frisbee in the middle of the field on the 50-yard line basically, and dodgeball start. Everybody has to be touching the kiddie pool.
Yeah.
We'll blow a whistle and you run to see who can get the frisbee first.
Yeah.
And so in this particular game, and we kind of had this down, but this other kid, Ronnie Chaddock, I don't know if he'll listen to this, but I see him on Instagram sometimes. Tall kid, pretty fast, right? So, and he was in my group. So I booked it to the middle of the field, first time out, slid, scooped the frisbee in one move, just kind of scoop it, pop up, and just chucked it as far as I could to get it down to this kiddie pool. And Ronnie just ran on the outside, like just full sent it on the outside around everybody, caught it, score. So we go to do it again. And there's this other guy, Connor Best. Do you know Connor Best back in the day?
Yeah.
Around, right? So C squared, that's what we called each other. He's on the other team and he sees me do this. So he's like, okay, game on. So I run, he runs on the next whistle. I slide and I'm literally like turned like, like this, scooping up a frisbee.
Yeah.
He slid at the same time and his knee drilled me in the back of my thigh.
Yeah. It's pretty gnarly.
And we just all kind of thought it was like a Charlie horse, like a really bad Charlie horse. So like the camp nurse person had me put Ben Gay on it, which like draws blood to a wound. Yeah. It turns out, bro, there was a hole in my hamstring that for years later, I mean, I can still feel where the spot is on my leg.
No way.
For years later, I could literally stick my finger in the hole through my skin. It was crazy. Like we went to eventually later that night, they took me to the ER because like it was just so swollen and red.
Yeah.
And really, really uncomfortable. And this kills me to this day. Like I'm in this room and the nurse comes in and takes one look at my leg and turns around and walks out, right? Makes it into the hallway and yells down the hallway, "Hey guys, come look at this." She was like, that's so messed up. And I was like, and it's so dumb because it's like, well, what were you doing? I was playing frisbee with some teenagers.
With some kids.
That's the really cool thing I was doing that got me this wound.
That's brutal, Deb. And he's not
stupid.
If you saw this picture, I mean, it's literally like he took a purple and blue piece of construction paper and that size and slapped it to the back of his leg. No joke. I kind of forgot about that
Pretty
until I
wicked.
saw the picture. It was a fun
Pretty
memory.
wicked.
Yeah, it was.
Now, I've had playing softball, I've had bruises that have lasted for years before because of the broken blood vessels or whatever. I don't know. They just described it. So was that like that for you? How long did that bruise stay there?
The bruise itself like started to dissipate, but it took forever for it to like really all the way go away, for all the blood to drain down. It was like into my ankle eventually, and my foot swelled up.
Oh,
Like
God.
it took forever. And this was so fantastic, right? Is that year, for whatever reason, we came back from summer camp, and you got a bag, sleeping bag, pillow, like all your crap that you take to summer camp. And like people offered to help me, but I'm like typical male. I'm like, I don't need help, like I'm gonna be fine. I got my crutches, shove them in my car with all my gear. I go home. Well, I lived, and I can't remember the name of the street anymore, but I lived in this apartment, and my neighborhood was kind of sketchy. And I pulled around the corner, and they had like police taped off my street. So I had to park like blocks away and crutch my way with all my crap to my apartment through a crime scene where they had those little tent things next to bullet casings, because somebody got shot. And I'm like, oh, hey guys, what's going on? Frisbee wound, don't worry about it.
They thought you got shot too.
Oh, God.
Jeez, man.
So
That's
stupid.
crazy.
Do you still have that? Is that still on your hamstring, that like indentation?
There's still like a little like scar on my hamstring. I can feel it. Like right now,
Oh,
I'm
my
like pushing
God.
on the hole.
That's
It was
wild.
wild.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I feel like this was you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you also break your arm on one of those metal where they would like hang up like the lights, those metal pillars? Did you?
Yeah.
That was you.
See, a little too bright. I don't know. There's a scar right here.
Okay.
I didn't break my arm. My bone didn't break. We were tearing down from, youth service one night, and I just didn't take one of like I didn't safety like chain one of the pieces of metal trussing and pop the last pin out, and it just dropped and like pinned my arm between two metal pieces. So like it severed this artery right here that's coming up. And it was literally like Missy Vaughn like talks about it still too, if you remember Jody and Missy Vaughn.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
It literally was like in the AC, the activity center at Capitol.
Yeah.
I was literally standing there after they got it off my arm, like turn around, like and so it was just like spraying like out onto the carpet, and it was just like dripping. Like, I mean, it was like just draining blood.
Dude.
And I just go, somebody help me.
Somebody help.
And Jody, this is like total Baywatch, right? Like Jody Vaughn looks around and goes, somebody get me a towel. Somebody get me a towel. And nobody moved. So he just like rips his shirt off and runs across the AC and wraps my arm up and is like gripping it. And yeah, that happened for sure.
Jeez.
And it was a terrible, wild experience. But yeah,
dude, who would have thought?
Legend too, bro. I don't know if you can see it like that.
Oh yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah.
Scar.
Oh my
right
God.
there.
Yeah.
It sounds like you went to war. Like people that, like you come back from this whole, internship or this job, people that didn't really know what you were up to. It's like, what'd you do? It's like, oh, I have this huge bruise on the back of my leg. I almost broke my arm in half. Not a big deal. Just a normal
Leg was
year.
almost amputated.
Yeah.
Almost died.
Good year.
Artery severed.
Yeah.
Totally worth being in there.
It's funny. Since we've been talking about the summer camp thing, and Deb, I don't know how many summer camps you've gone to throughout your life, but I was actually talking to my brother about this the other day, and he made a really good point. Obviously, when you're in high school, you see these people that are kind of leading the summer camps, and it's like you just know that they're older than you. Kind of like when you play sports in high school, you're a freshman, you see these seniors and juniors, you're like, these guys are like full grown men, and then you get to become a junior and senior, and you realize, no, these are just still kids. He's like, do you ever think about those summer camps? It's like we went to those summer camps as high schoolers, and we were just being led by people in like their early 20s. Like, what parent is sending their kids to these summer camps? Like, they're so much fun and so awesome. But Jordan's like, who does this? Some guy who's like 25 is like, just gonna lose his mind at some point, because he has this bright idea to, do the ultimate frisbee thing and have everybody run full force at each other. I'm like, that's a great
idea.
point, man. That's a great point. I never really thought about it that way, but a lot of parents are sending these kids to these camps with, crazy kids involved or leading the charge. I don't know.
It's true.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not much to say there.
But it's a real thought. So I mean, just flash back to what I think I said a little bit earlier. Like I've thought about this a lot in the last couple of years. Like I was put in charge of a group of teenagers, and granted, at that point I was like 18, 19. They were 14, but like kind of like charged with like, hey, you're going to help these people develop spiritually. When literally, like I'm telling you, Josh, when I got interviewed to come to Masters, they were like, who's your favorite Bible character? And you can't say Jesus. Like, here's like a question we want, and we want to know why. And my literal answer to that question was, I don't know anyone else from the Bible. So you tell me someone I should like, and I'll tell you I like them.
That's an awesome answer.
Angela Pitnikoff did not like that answer, but like Jeannie was like forcing them to accept me. So like that's where it is. And so like I've thought about that a lot. I'm like, I had no idea what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that was good. You know what I mean? Like maybe in some ways it kind of worked out in some spaces, but like, you know what I mean? Like there was a real emphasis on like on doing a lot of things. And there were these like spaces where it was like about development, but I've really like questioned how good of an idea a lot of those things were. Where I'm like, hey man, like, I don't know, maybe somebody like out of the gate when they learn the gospel should find out that like God loves them for them and not because of the things they can do in structured ministry, which is a very confusing thing when I was younger,
Yeah, well, and that's you see, I'm glad you said that, because, and not to anybody who's not super spiritual, just bear with us, but that's kind of like we were kind of joking about before when you mentioned you listened to the episode with Cedric and you're like, man, I didn't realize you felt the way you did about some of these things. Like I said, I used to love going to the youth group, man. I loved that. I was in a great position where my parents didn't force me, but they just encouraged it. Like, yeah, this is awesome. So I was in a great position when it came to that. Then I see you guys as leaders. I'm like, man, I would love to do that. And then you kind of get behind the scenes and you see how much just busy work there is. And I'm like, I don't know I feel like we could be focusing on maybe the connections we're supposed to be making with these students or people around us. And it was just a lot of like, well, you got to go to this meeting or this meeting. And I'm like, I don't know. And that's just one of those things that never sat well with me. So when I said on that episode, I had a bad attitude, it was more about that stuff. Like you said, some of that stuff I'm not sure is super beneficial. And I think it creates I mean, I wasn't in it as much as you were. I was just, basically a volunteer, but some of the stuff you see, it's like, man, I don't know if this is the best for a person's mentality or their, I guess, spiritual growth, but I mean, that's just my opinion.
It's a weird thing, man, because, and I think it does relate to almost anything in the world, right? Like there's a certain amount, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, like you create a certain amount of the work that you have to do by potentially adding in like unnecessary structure elements, pieces to the thing that you're trying to do, right? Like, and at some point you do have to evaluate, like, is this the most efficient way to do what we're really after or accomplish what we're after? It's not the reason, it's like a personal deal that like one of the reasons why I'm not in full-time ministry at this point is because I just kind of perpetually was hitting a spot where I was like, I don't really get why we have to do all this stuff. Like, and I felt a lot of internal tension for myself. I attend a church, right? Like it's not like I'm not anti-church or something like that. I just hit a point where I was like, man, it just seems like we spend a lot of time on these couple of things that I don't know if they're netting the real outcome that we say we're after. So why do we spend so much time doing them? And I just felt for myself personally that it was kind of time for me to step back, like
Okay.
I went from like didn't know Jesus to full-time ministry basically through a master's commission at 18, and then just grinded that thing out for until I was 34 or whatever it was when I stepped away. But it was a good long clip there. It was time for me to take a deep breath and back up a little bit. But and also it's okay, but it's a weird thing. And there's a lot of weird things that go along with that. And I've had lots of conversations in the last probably year and a half with people that are like, that is really weird that we did that way. It's like, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's really odd. But the thing is that where I feel like my heart is different than maybe other people at times I talk to is I don't feel like malicious about it, or like I don't feel like I'm not like angry about it. Like it's more just like, oh, like people were doing what they thought they were supposed to be doing, right?
Sure.
Or the best with what they knew to do at that point in time. It's not like somebody came along and said like, how can we really F these people up with our strange programs and requirements? It's not how people function largely. So
yeah,
I don't know, whatever. That's a tangent.
Yeah.
No, it's good though, because I think I think like you said, it doesn't just apply to that setting. I think it applies to any setting. I mean, obviously, Deb, you being a teacher, a high school teacher, I imagine a lot of those things you've dealt with, and I think even in your, I don't know how much you want to say about this, but like your recent departure as assistant AD, some of that stuff you probably saw. It's like, I'm not I can't keep going down this road. So I just can't be a part of this because certain things are in place that don't make any sense to you. So I think that applies to anything, whether it be your job, Deb, you as a teacher. I don't know. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. You just kind of evolve and you figure out what's right for you. And, like you said, Connor, there's no bad thoughts, bad feelings about it maybe, but it's just something that you want to step away from. And then I'm a person who like hates quitting something and hates leaving something. So me, I always struggle with the level of guilt when I'm like, no, I want to do this instead, or I want to step away, from this. But at the end of the day, it's like we're humans and we're evolving. And at the end of the day, we're humans leading humans. Like we're just trying to help each other and help figure out, certain things. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you and for your current, your current situation in life, because our situations change constantly. And sometimes we go back to something that we left, and sometimes we don't, and we move on and we do something that we're meant to do. And I think that we have a feeling in our gut and in our heart and in our soul for a reason, if we need to leave something or start again. And I think that if you follow that intuition at the end of the day, I think that's something to be said, but that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. And I mean, some things in life are just a natural progression of like, the more people and elements you add to anything, the more bureaucratic or complicated it naturally becomes. You know what I mean? Like, think about like if you're with 2 or 3 friends and you're like, hey, let's go grab something to eat, like how that decision gets made versus like if it's 25 people and now you have to decide where you're all going to eat. Like it's just completely more complicated. It's a completely different thing, right? And it's like, like as you add this, then layers of decision making and processes and systems and all these things get added in. Like being a teacher, like can you find a more bureaucratic system than like, oh well, we got to meet all these standards and check these boxes and fill out the form and and here's what you can and can't say and blah blah blah, and like anyway, like all that kind of stuff. Like it's just how it works, and so it's it's like expected, but it's also kind of interesting, like in your heart, like, right, like you understand, am I about this? Am I on board with where the system is going or the program is headed? You got to weigh it out for sure. And I think that's okay. But here's so on the like Connectable podcast, right?
Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing that I wrestled with, right? So like when I left ministry, my whole job was connections, right? So like I did small groups, leadership, missions, spoke, all that kind of stuff. Internal staff development, all that kind of stuff. I was very, very curious what it would be like after having been in that space for so long to no longer have like a title or position where like I would be in a place and people would come to me, right? Where I start connecting with people because I was really good at that. Of like, how good am I at that at like the local bar where I walk in, I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
How do you meet somebody there? You know what I mean? How good am I at like this thing over here where nobody knows who I am when I walk in? Because that was the other deal with ministry that drove me nuts a little bit, was like I couldn't go buy like a loaf of bread without running into somebody that wanted to talk to me about like, hey, do you think you could talk to my teenager about this thing? They're like, well, no, maybe you should talk to him. You know,
Sure.
I need bread and I'm trying to go home. Like,
Yeah.
that's really all I'm after. I literally one time when I walked into the gym in the morning at 4:30 or whatever it was in the morning, had a guy step away from the machine and be like, hey, Pastor Connor, I'm getting a divorce. Okay. Like, that's not good, but my headphones are in and it's 4:30 in the morning. I don't want to talk to any humans right now.
Right.
That's not what I'm for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you have a need, but I also have a need. Like, let's just talk about that another time. You know,
Yeah.
like, and that sounds sometimes like you say, I feel guilty. It's just like, well, maybe I'm being an asshole, but like, I don't really think I am. I'm just,
Yeah.
that's whatever. So I don't even know where I'm going with all that, but like, I've totally lost track where I was headed. But,
no, I can relate. If I can interrupt your thought, as a teacher, I purposefully do not live in the town I teach in. I live like purposefully 15 minutes down the back roads away, just because my school, I have 3,000 kids at my school. That's a lot. And like, my district is the biggest district in Northern California. I know kids from other schools just by being a coach and a past coach and athletic director. I lived at one point in that town, in the town I teach in, for a couple months. I was crashing with the friend. I was actually going through a divorce at the time. So I was living with the friend who lived close to my work. And I'm like, oh, cool, convenient. Like, I'll just go to work right there.
Right.
Yeah, that was like, I moved out in 2 months. I was like, I can't do this. I gotta move across town or something. And I would go for a run and I would see kids waving at me and like wanting to like catch up with me. And I'm like, no, go away. Like, I'll see you tomorrow. I'd go to the store. I'd have a case of beer and then here comes 3 kids. Hi. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm just like ducking. And even it's just, it's you need to hold space for yourself to where you can have your own thoughts, your own life. And your job, you can be passionate about your work, right? But you need to be able to get away from it at the end of the day. You can't be at work 24/7. And and sometimes my kids want to reach out to me on social media and I'm like, look, no, because I'm clocking out. You could see me at school. We're not going to talk right now, because I have teenage girls that want to talk to me about their boy problems and like they want girl chat, and it's very sweet. And I love talking to them, but I'm like, no, you can wait till tomorrow when I see you first period. So,
totally.
You know what's really interesting about that though too is that I know, and Deb, you and I both know from our other podcasts, coaches and teachers that have the exact opposite mentality. Like they're like, hey, when I moved to this new school, I'm trying to find a house as close as possible to the school to be like, to just like be ingrained in that culture that, like Jason Tenner, he's who I'm thinking of. Like he wanted to be a part of that community. So it's interesting that and I don't think either one's wrong. You know what I mean? I don't think either mindset's wrong. I think it's just I think you have to understand that about yourself, right? Like I think if Deb, you move close to your school, knowing that was going to drive you crazy, like that'd be a bad move. If Tenor decided to move somewhere like, 10 miles from his school, like that wouldn't help him accomplish what he's trying to accomplish. So it just made me think about that. It was interesting because I think it depends on the person.
Yeah. I think as far as like the actual like function of that goes, like I would have been totally okay probably talking to that guy at a different hour of the day but it's more just like
Yeah.
it's
For sure.
more like like, oh, like I'm just gonna like take, your time right now. It wasn't like, hey man, can I talk to you like later today? Could I schedule, you know what I mean? And like that would be like, yeah, sure, let's do that, or like, hey, can I find a time? I mean, literally, like I remember one time we went out on like a double date and we're sitting there eating dinner. And I think 2 or 3 times someone walked through the restaurant and came over and said hello and like interrupted our conversation between the four of us.
Yeah.
And they got like, the other couple was like, is this how this always is? And we were like, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
just like, and they're like, oh, it's like, yeah, like, I don't know, like it's fine, but it's also like, yeah,
but not
leave me alone.
but not
Right.
really. I mean, yeah. Well,
Like,
especially going back
maybe
to
like have some social awareness and like some cues and maybe,
well, especially
yeah.
the first example you gave at the gym. I mean, I guess the issue I have with that is not only is he interrupting during a time that's not appropriate. He just said, "Hey man, I'm getting a divorce," and then he expects you to run with the ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not even a question
Which,
attached
listen,
there.
Yeah.
I literally still talk to that guy. Like he's a good dude, and we ended up grabbing like coffee, and I love him. You know what I mean? But it was just like, and that's 100% him. It's just like, here it is. I had to be like, oh, okay, what's your name?
Yeah. What do you want me to do with this? Yeah.
Why
well,
are you telling me this right now?
Well, in your
I sit in the back
situation,
of your church sometimes. Oh, okay, cool.
yeah, cool. Well, in your situation, man, especially I imagine like where you're at now or wherever that was taking place, much smaller town. So, I mean, it's almost like you guys are like celebrities without like the financial perks. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely no financial perks.
You just get bugged all the time, and then you're not balling or anything like that. Just, hey, as people feel free to come up to me during dinner and ask me for advice. So, yeah, that would be frustrating for sure.
Yeah.
No, man, but like, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just what Josh was saying earlier. And I think it's a personality thing too, because Connor, just like you, when you were at the gym, that's your time. You just got done explaining that that's the time of day, 4 or 5 in the morning where no one wants anything from you. And then here comes
someone marching to you.
You're like, this is not, no. And it interrupts your plan and your piece of why you're there. So for me, I'm very, very picky about my me time and about I'm clocked out. I'm emotionally done for the day.
Right.
It's why I'm gonna go take my boxing class, because obviously I need to punch something. So like, do not talk to me. So for me, it's like, I think it's a personality thing. It's I know me, and I know that if I'm pushed too far and I get too burnt out and I don't say no to things that I can't do, like I will just not be a very happy person. And then others are suffer. And so and you just
some of that's like knowing like the introvert extrovert side of people, you know what I mean? Like how do you actually like fill your cup, sort of a deal.
Right.
And like, I think maybe it was Cedric that talked about this. Somebody that I listened to
it was
Alexis.
Alexis. That was incredible. That was from what book was that from? Oh no, I don't know what book it was from, but it was Simon Sinek, one of his books. And she was talking about depending
the realization of what that actually means, right? Is it like, it's more about like, how do you actually like recharge, and where do you gain energy from, and where does energy leave you? And every time I've ever taken like a personality test or quiz or whatever, I always fall like right on like the 50-50 line on introvert extrovert.
Interesting.
And so like, is really weird. Like, I can feel it coming, you know what I mean? Where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't be around another human. Like I'm going to lose it. I got to just shut it down. But I also can feel it when I've been home for a minute. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to leave my house, and I'm going to go to the local bar or wherever. And I'm just going to like walk in and just like, what's up, man?
Yeah. That's funny. See, man, I'm so introverted. That's why some people are like, "You doing a podcast?" Like Josh talking about it. Yeah, I'm doing a podcast. I love it, but naturally, I'm just super introverted. And I was actually joking with my brother the other day. We were talking about like solitary confinement at a prison. And I'm
Mm.
like, you know what, man? Like I wouldn't do well in prison, but if I was in solitary confinement, I think I could outlast a lot of people because I don't mind being alone. I know in the end it wouldn't be great for me, but I'm like, I think I could last a lot longer. Some of these other clowns, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, but you'd be robbed of this. You know
yeah,
what
I
I
would
mean?
be robbed of this. Yeah, we've talked about doing a
Like,
podcast from prison. Wouldn't it be great? Those like 15-minute, calls to the outside. It's tough to do a podcast that way.
And I'm stuck with all the editing. I don't know that you want me to do all that.
yeah.
No, because I know you can't do any of that. Connor, I shouldered the entire burden of this podcast. I just want to let you know that,
I just,
Yeah.
show up, I just show up and hit play and I talk and I log off.
And sometimes she doesn't
Yeah.
even show up. There's been weeks where she's like, "Hey, I'm not gonna come today." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, once again, I'm doing all the work. Not a big deal."
Those were the days where it just was too much, and she was like, "Hey, I'm out."
Yeah, it happened like for 3 weeks in a row. Not a big deal, but I'm just
I
saying.
did.
She was in her trailer. Okay.
She was there. Yeah, yeah. The celebrity trailer, just trying not to get bothered by like TMZ. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, we know you're in the Midwest. We don't want to.
That's true.
We don't want to keep you too late because it's what 11 o'clock your time. So
Yeah, 11:15.
11:15.
I would have.
I don't think
Oh.
I don't think the 5 a.m. workout probably is happening exactly at 5 a.m. tomorrow. So
Okay. Well, you can blame us for that. You can blame us for that. We
Yeah.
apologize, but
Yeah.
man, we appreciate you taking some time to talk to us.
Man.
Also, man, I wanted to say too, I was telling Deb, you were really active on the Connectable bracket that we did and on the voting and stuff like
man.
that. We appreciate that.
that made
That
it
was a lot
so
of fun.
much more fun. You know what's fun is that then I had to like go because like at first I was like, oh, well, here's people that I know, so I'm gonna try to listen to their podcasts
Oh, that's nice.
and actually like hear what they're about. And then I was like, well, crap, now people I know are getting eliminated, so I'm gonna have to go listen to other episodes of people I don't know. Which was still cool, but it was kind of fun listening to for people that I know. It was nice because like I haven't probably talked to them in a while,
Sure.
and it was like catching up on their life. You know what I mean? For
Yeah.
a minute, and like, oh yeah, like that's cool. That's where they're at. That's what's going on. I did. Yeah, I did listen to others. The other, I think the guy that won, I listened to his, which is really interesting about like his t-shirt fitness brand stuff.
He's got incredible stuff. Yeah. If you love working out, his stuff's really comfortable. It's good stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Chad Larson, I remember.
Do you know
I
him?
remember meeting. I don't know him, but
Okay.
I've met him. I met him back in the day when Dustin Larson was like the kids pastor and at like a Halloween, whatever the thing was they did for Halloween back in the day. I think he came and helped out with that or something. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was good too. It was fun listening to that. Just totally different.
Yeah. He's a really interesting guy. Yeah. He's in a completely different, that world is very different. That bodybuilding world is very different.
Yeah. It's fascinating to listen to, but I'm trying to think. Those are ones that popped out. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. No, it was funny. I got so Trav wasn't really involved in the competition. And like I know he's a competitive guy. So he kept just kind of coasting through to all these rounds. I'm like, he's not even pushing it. And so I just texted him. I said, hey man, just want to let you know that you're in this thing and you're in the quarterfinals if you care. He's like, oh cool. He's like, oh cool, man. He's like, yeah, somebody reached out to me and said, hey, I listened to your podcast. Like, I wasn't sure who it was at first. And I'm like, oh, cool. He's like, do you know anybody in Wisconsin? I said, it might have been Connor.
Dude, that's so hilarious. I shot him a text and it took him like a few days to get back to me or whatever. That's funny. I'm gonna text him and be like, hey, jerk.
Yeah. He's actually him and Melissa are coming on the podcast next week.
Yeah. It'll be like new phone, who dis?
Yeah.
He totally did to me.
Yeah.
That's funny though. Cause it is fun, but like I could totally hear and I hope Travis listened to this, but like in his typical Travis, like, oh hey, yeah, cool man. Like it's like kind of like
yeah.
Like oh man, total Trav. I loved him, man. He's such a good dude. And he always has been. That's what's crazy about it.
He's the nicest guy.
Here's a funny story about Trav. So back when I was in Masters, we could make money sometimes working football games, doing like the sticks or whatever. So I did that one night.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he remembers this, but he played quarterback at Capitol, and I like love football. So I'm standing here with my stick, for marking first downs or whatever. And I'm just watching this play unfold. And he's like doing this like quarterback keep, kind of breaking out towards the sideline. There's nowhere to go. They're just rumbling away. And I'm just totally into the play, like watching it. And I never moved the stick. And him and this guy like crash into the stick and like kind of bent it. And I still remember this because he goes, he's like, "Hey man, do you think you could move it next time?" That kind of hurt. Not like, "Hey, you effing idiot, like get the stick out of the way, you dunce." Like,
anybody else would have done that, but him was like,
anybody else would have lost their stuff. It's like, "Hey man, think you could move the stick next time? That really hurt."
A nice way to say it.
It's so good. It's so good. He's the best.
He's the man. Yeah, I interned for him. Him and so Harper, Michelle, Raby, all of them. I did a couple of years of internship with them. And so I worked a lot with Trav over the years, and just the nicest guy. That was kind of the thing that impression was pretty spot on. Like, I just never see him get mad. He's the best.
So good.
I'm gonna mention this next week when I talk to those guys.
You should.
Yeah, I will.
You should be like, "Connor was talking trash about you on the podcast."
Yeah, you really offended him by not knowing his number and just saying, "Hey, some dude text me."
Just leave it at that.
Yeah. That's
just
awesome.
leave it at like he was talking some trash about you, but you probably have to go listen to it. Just to find out.
Yeah. Make sure you go download it. That would be great. You can only hear it if you download it. Yeah. Yeah, this is good. You get a little jab at him. I get some downloads. This is like mutually beneficial. I like it.
Yeah, totally. So
So hey man, so before we get out of here, you have any other thoughts or little pieces of knowledge? I had other questions, but I kind of got sidetracked. I feel like once I'm asked that bacon question, all my notes just went out the window. You know what I mean? I just had a bunch of other stuff. It's like, throw them out the window, go in a different direction. But any final
bacon
thoughts?
will do that to you.
Yeah. Yeah. But you saved a kid from really going down a dark road with that bacon. So well done, sir. Well done.
Yeah.
So any other thoughts before we get out of here? And then also, if you're interested, we would love to kind of give someone or people a place to follow you and on social media and all that stuff. If you want, if you don't want to, then we can wrap it right there.
Yeah.
And obviously.
Yeah.
Sure, man. I mean, I don't like, I only am really active on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's just at P Conor Manning.
Yep.
And it's cool. If you want to participate in early morning workout videos and pictures of my children, cool.
It's good stuff. Yeah. If you want to feel bad about yourself as he's doing one-armed pull-ups, go check it out.
I haven't done a one-arm pull-up yet. Okay. So I'm working on it.
Could have fooled me, man. I've seen, hey, I'll tell you this. It's closer than me.
There's a hopping one, which is part of like the progression to get there. It's where not like this, like people go, "Oh, well, I can do that." And they'll do like a pull-up like this. That is not what I'm talking. I'm not even talking about a chin-up. We're talking about grabbing a bar with one arm, dead hang, and just pull yourself up. Mm-mm. That's what I'm after. And it turns out it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be when I started. So I'm still working on it. But
hey man, I've made this very clear on this podcast and all of our podcasts. I can't do pull-ups at all. It's one of those things I've just never been able to do. So even seeing you do that, it's impressive. You could be standing on a chair and just doing this. Still probably better than I could do. So it's still impressive to me. I'm not joking. I can't do pull-ups. I'm like the one guy at the gym that's using that one machine where you put your knees on the pad. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That's why that's the real reason I go at 4:30 in the morning. I was like, no one's gonna see me do this. This is shameful.
Well, hey, maybe you can work at it,
Okay. Sure.
Let's see who can do it first. You do one legitimate pull-up and I'll see if I can do one arm pull-up, and we'll see who does it first.
If we were betting, I would 100% bet on you against myself.
Messed up.
Well, it's true. It's true. But so yeah, anyway, so they can follow you there. But any kind of final thoughts or anything you want to say before we get out of here?
I mean, I don't know. I didn't come into this with an agenda, so I don't have one as I'm leaving.
There we go.
But
that works. We'll end it there. So, hey man, we definitely appreciate you taking some time and just chatting with us. Chatting with us. It was a lot of fun reconnecting with you, man. And hey, this upcoming year, you'll be in this bracket as well. So you get to compete against some people and tear them apart. You're competitive. Scary. You're competitive.
I'm competitive, but you know, I feel like I should have said more like, you know, really good, insightful, meaningful things so that maybe I could drive my, but instead we talked about like poop, Harry Potter,
your
blood
massive,
draining through my,
putting a hole through your leg.
Yeah.
Insightful things.
Hey man, that's what people want anyways. They don't want the deep stuff all the time. It's good.
It's good.
Yeah.
Awesome,
it was really good. It was great. It was great to see you again, Josh. Thanks for having me on, Deb. It was really nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And good luck out there in teacher world.
Right. Good luck to both of you out there in parent world. I get to send them home at the end of the day.
Yeah. So
that's
awesome. Well, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable Podcast.